Hey everybody, welcome to this week's show. I have Kyle, the GM of Team Rocket with me,
Blasting off.
and I am, of course, your commissioner and champion, Team Ramrod, GM. This, boys, 2 weeks away from finding out who is going to get their name on this beautiful trophy. We already know whose name is going on the Caucasaurus. Uh, in fact, I believe it's already been put on, right?
It has. Absolutely. And I can't wait to deliver it to him.
Uh, This is what it's all about, though, boys. This trophy, it's been going strong, right? We've had 7 champions throughout our years. Um, we'll have an eighth name on there. We have obviously our COVID year, which didn't count, but next season is our 10th season. We're still looking to hear ideas if anyone wants to see anything special done. Do we want to see maybe higher prizes for next year as a maybe like a 1 year only type thing because it's a milestone year. We're open to ideas, and we can talk about it all off season as long as things are settled by the draft, so everyone knows what they're getting into next year.
Yeah. And speaking of names on the trophies, 75% chance it's a repeat.
Yeah, yeah. This is only one non-repeat champion, right? So,
Yeah.
a lot of pressure. I'm hoping to be the first three-time winner.
Oh, elite company all by yourself.
I got big plans, boys. I'll get a new shirt made. I already have some trolling options thought up here. I got a little list made that I might use some this year, another year when I win. It's all right. But we have some results to talk about here. We'll talk about the one that affected both of us. It was a good week. Le Champion in the end came out victorious against Team Rocket. What happened here, Kyle?
Oh boy. Yeah, your boys came fired up on all cylinders, and it was hard to compete. I spent early part of my week just getting rid of duds, and that left me a little options. But when you got guys like Ovechkin scoring 7 goals, Matthews 3 goals, 7 assists, McDavid 1 goal, 10 assists. It was Keller 3 goals on the week. You know, it was hard to compete with that. Yeah, yeah, like 121 shots. You managed to get 4 wins, which we tied. You had more saves than me. Like my team did well, but yours, you prove why you're Le Champion at the end of the day. I blame this loss on Sean for 2 reasons. Yeah, fuck you, Sean. One for beating me in that last week, because had I won, I would have played Neil. I would have beat Neil. And two for selling Ovechkin to Shane here. 7 fucking goals. Fuck you, Sean.
He only had like 14 before I got him.
Yeah, right. And
He
he,
scored
he
seven
had
last week.
50% in 1 week to his total.
Sean, he might disagree with this, but he's actually like my biggest fan. It was a good week,
uh,
though. It was back and forth early on. I felt it could have went either way, but as we crept closer to the weekend, I just felt like I had it. Once we got to about late Thursday night, Friday, I felt that my
yeah,
my team had it locked down. Not because your team played bad, just my boys played well. Uh,
yeah. I did have an out on Sunday potentially, but it obviously didn't transpire. Florida was going on a shutout late in the game that would have given me a game winner, a shutout, a win, and there's scenarios, but scenarios didn't pan out, and your team was just too good.
Well, I did like that you improved your team to get to the playoffs this year. You took some steps in the right direction, in my opinion. It was a hard-fought week, buddy. I do hate the sending pack, but again, I have to send everyone packing if I want to win. So, uh, business is business.
That's it. I got elite. I got elite.
That's it. Where I might see you around down the line there. So,
Yeah, maybe next week.
but good week. The right team won, though, in my opinion. And contrary to what half the league thought, who sent in their predictions, the right team won. um, Travis changes his name already to DM to buy his keepers. Um, Going through a scorched earth policy here after losing to Sauce Pass. What happened here?
uh, Travis's goalies didn't show, on top of Corey's players just lighting the place up. 34 assists, 15 power play points, 3 game winners, 85 hits. Corey lost shots on goal with 125 shots on goal. That's kind of crazy to me. Yeah, Travis, other than his keepers underperforming, he didn't have a terrible week, but Corey had a stellar week. I find Corey's team is like Jekyll and Hyde. Like, you don't know which team you're getting from him. You know, sometimes you're like, why is this team in the playoffs? Other times you're like, holy shit, he does have a good team. I think like the big thing for Corey, Tavares had 8 points, 2 goals, 6 assists. Bouchard had 8 assists. Nurse had 16 penalty minutes for him. I don't know who had Lee this week in our league, but Lee put up 20 pims in a game on Sunday.
Oh, someone had him too. I think it was a playoff team that had him.
Yeah, I'm not too sure who has him, but yeah, that's huge. 20 pims in a game.
Yeah, it was a knee on knee incident, and there was a brawl, right? So,
Mm,
so
yeah.
he was getting the gate for the knee, and then people don't like it when players get kneed.
Oh God, no. Yeah, Corey's entire team showed up. Even Wilson, who's out with with suspension now.
Yeah, 6 games. So he's not playing the rest of the season for him.
Uh,
Because
oh
Washington plays a few games this week, maybe
yeah.
3. He might get him back late in the finals should he make it that far.
Okay.
Right? He got six
But
games.
you
So
have no plans on letting him get to the finals.
I have no plans on letting him get to the finals, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I do want to touch base on Travis's plan here, because some people were questioning what was going on in the chat. Just to clarify, what he wants to do is make trades, verbal agreements with everyone, and then after the draft, when he's able to trade these guys, he's going to trade those players.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the way I understood it. Which is completely fine. People are taking a risk, but we've never really had any issues with anybody backing out of their word or whatever.
No, and I think it's a good way to do it if he wants to go scorched earth and kind of build up from the ground again. This is a guy who's just not happy with his keepers. He's not happy with how his team performed. He was even saying it's not only the playoff loss, it's like the last 6 weeks of the season is like my team was struggling. He just doesn't see that being the solution to his long-term success. So
Yeah.
he wants to accumulate as much draft capital as possible. I don't even think he goes into the draft the year after with all that capital because we know TVT loves to deal and he's going to work and get the players he wants that he'll overpay if he has to, whatever he needs to kind of really rebuild, right? So I think it's an interesting strategy for him.
Yeah.
Tough loss against Corey, but Corey's team played really well last weekend. I had Corey in my power rankings at number 3, right? There's a reason I had him ranked so high is we saw this kind of potential in him, in his team, right? He has a good roster. So the result doesn't surprise me, but again, it would not have surprised me if the result was the other way around because these were 2 really good teams. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and to no one's surprise, Dre defeated Plums in a good matchup. This was close. The score was close all the way to the end. What happened here?
Man, yeah, this is a real shocker in a sense from watching it from the start of the week to the end of the week, where Dre was crushing it at the beginning of the week, and then as the week went on, Kyle caught up and then passed him briefly, and then they were kind of wrestling at around a tie for most of the rest of the week, even going into Sunday, and that's reflected in the scores here. They tied at 16 pims. They both had a shorty. Shots on goal was close. Blocks were close. Goaltending stats were close. Kyle nearly performed a huge upset, but Dre pulled through.
We were drinking all day yesterday, and I was talking. We were talking to Dre about how close it was to Nick, and Nick wasn't even worried at all. He's like, the score's close, but when you really looked at it, there weren't a lot of categories that he could take to actually take the lead.
Yeah,
Plums. So Nick was still pretty comfortable all day, even though the score was 7-7, 7-6. Like, and again, Nick probably has the tiebreaker in that scenario. So,
he did. Yeah,
right?
and I had to look like because I think it was at one point Dre had 5 guys going to Kyle's 1, which it's a close matchup, but it's 5 guys against 1.
They're gonna
Like
pull ahead in certain categories. Like,
yeah, like shots on goal. They were tied on shots on goal, but then he pulled really ahead with 5 guys going versus Kyle's 1.
I did like the message that Nick put out in the chat to show his respect to Plums. Uh, after years of trash talking his team, showing him no respect. Kyle finally earned Nick's respect. Something that some of us are still working on.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
good,
yeah.
good matchup though. Good matchup for a 1 versus 8. Um, Kyle put up as big of a fight as he could with what he had. So
Yeah, no, hats off to Kyle for making it interesting.
yeah. Injury plagued Neil was taken down by Dan, who we all know Dan was a contender to begin with. What happened here?
Like you said, injuries injuries hurt Neil quite a bit,
I think we
and
looked at it yesterday and there was like what he had 12 blocks as a team.
yeah, he finished with 25.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good finish because I think when we were talking about yesterday afternoon. I think it was at like 16 for his team. Like, wow, that's not a lot for your whole team for a week.
I think the big story here is he lost in goaltending, and that's what the difference maker was, because otherwise they well, Dan even took more player categories, but he only had 6 power play points, even though he had 21 goals and 16 assists. Only 6 of those were power play points. Dan crushed him in penalty minutes. It was probably Dan who had to leave, if I had to guess. No, apparently not.
There were a lot
Huh.
of goon stuff. Like even Kopitar got you 10 pims in the one game. Right? Like
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and Dan had 129 shots, 79 hits. That's hard. 59 blocks. That's hard. 4 goalie wins is solid. And it shows with Dan's moves late in the season to get that goalie. That paid off for him pretty big.
yeah,
Um,
because Neil would have had that goalie against them.
yeah, because he's got Shesterkin got 1 win, but Jake Allen, since he's been picked up by New Jersey, is going to increase ice time, and
Yeah.
he got 2 wins. That was a huge difference maker. Quick got a win as well. So yeah, that was massive for Dan. Yeah, so Dan's good for Dan. Dan's moving on, and tough loss for Neil.
I do want to say congratulations to the 4 teams that have advanced. And great season to the 4 teams that lost. Making the playoffs in this league is not easy. As you can see, it went down to the final day of the season. And everyone who makes the playoffs should be proud of how their team performed this year, no matter where they finish, in my opinion, at least. So thanks for participating, guys. And better luck next year to those who are no longer involved.
All right, let the crying begin.
I do have some results on the 8 people who sent in their predictions.
Oh, let's
Dan
hear.
Dan went 4 for 4.
Really?
Yeah, good for Dan.
Okay.
He really saw what was going on there. Sean and Plums both went 1 for 4.
Yeah.
We have a couple at 2. We have yourself and Mark.
Yeah.
And then Travis, Corey, and myself went 3 for 4.
Mm.
I went wrong with TVT.
Yeah, I went wrong with Dan and TVT.
They could have went either way, either of those really. So
Well, yeah.
tough to predict,
Yeah.
right? So I believe you have a little something prepared for us today.
Yeah, so just a little filler for this episode. We're going to go over records that were either tied or broken this year.
Were there that
Uh,
many?
there's
There's a few.
eight, eight records.
That's pretty
So,
impressive.
so we've talked about this. Uh, so tie for most losses of all time at 19 is Braden.
Job,
Hi,
Braden.
good job. You get a Caucasaurus for that. Tied for most wins of all time is Dre.
We all knew that. He tried the best record we've ever seen. So great job, Nick.
Tied for most shutouts in a week, Le Champion, Team Ramrod.
That was the last week of the season.
It was. Highest all-time save percentage in a week by Mark at
Wow.
9.967.
Good job, Mark.
Highest GAA in a single week at 0.596 by Dan.
Wow. That's impressive.
Highest GAA of all time, also Dan, for a season. Uh, uh, Most weeks where a single team led in goals scored consecutively, Neil.
Wow.
3 weeks. He was the league leader in goals. And same deal for power play points. Dre tied his own record for 3 weeks as the leader in power play points for the league.
That's hard to do,
It
right?
is because you got to beat 16 teams, right? 3 weeks in a row, most power play points, most goals, and that was done by two different teams. It's pretty impressive.
It's nice to see, like, I like that we have the record books and we can go back and see who's breaking records. Um, it's just interesting to see how well your teams are performing, right, in the season. So I occasionally I check like about once a month or two. I check to see what the records are and how people are doing this season, right? The records for the season, just to see. Gives you an idea of how the teams are actually performing.
Yeah, I check it out about the same, about once a month, maybe once every 2 months, and just kind of gauge my team, how I'm doing, how I compare,
Yeah,
who's the powerhouse, you
I think
know?
that's what it is too. You want to compare your team to other teams to see like where do I measure up?
Yeah, absolutely.
At least that's how I see it. But so some interesting little tidbits here to see. 8 records. I did not expect 8. That's a solid number. It just shows the league's getting like stronger, right?
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about the record book is that, because we have like the best week of all time, but it's always like the first week because we've had so many like double weeks
Yeah.
where it's not really like a great gauge for like who had the best week. So like
Those
that's
weeks should
tough.
be excluded.
Yeah, it should almost be excluded from the record books, but probably can't change that.
No. I guess let's get into the big matches here. Let's talk about the semifinals. Um, we'll start with this one. We got the number 1 seed, Dre, taking on the number 6 seed, Svetch Me a Drink. Kyle, who do you got here? And like, tell me about this matchup. What you're hoping to see, what you're expecting.
So, I mean, I picked Nick to win overall, and you mentioned this off the broadcast um, about how Tampa only has 2 games this week, and it leaves Nick extremely vulnerable. And like, just to give you an idea, right? Last week, Kucherov got 1 goal and 8 assists and like 15 shots on goal. Um, Braden Point, who's now or whatever his name is, Point, who's now injured, 5 goals, 2 assists. Um, and then we got Vasilevsky, who's putting up fantastic numbers. He only had 1 game last week, but he only allowed 1 goal, 21 saves, 955 save percentage, and like they only have 2 games this week. That's going to be tough on Nick. Those are some big numbers in his lineup. Uh,
This is the
I
most
mean,
vulnerable he's going to be in the playoffs.
oh, absolutely. So if there's going to be an upset, this is the week to do it. This is definitely the week to do it.
I agree.
Yeah. Oh, between like his Tampa players, 6 power play points. That's rough.
I mean, like we said, there's no going around it. Like that hurts his team, where three of his prime players are only playing minimum games, right? I think Dan's gonna pounce on that. But I think Dre is still gonna come out victorious. I think his team is too good. He's gonna beat Dan, and he's gonna go to the finals the way it should be and have, in my opinion, the top two seeds. Clash of the champions.
Yeah, we'll see how this one plays out. If he does lose, I'm not going to be surprised just based on that fact alone. But I did pick Nick to win the cup, so
In playoffs, though, you got to take advantage of your opponent's weakness, right? Like it's
yeah.
unfortunate, but this is what you
Well,
got to do. So
it's what I did to Sean a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, Washington only plays twice this week, and I loaded up the week before on players who were playing 4 games, and I ended up out like manning him some like 12 or 13 games. And my,
yeah,
my team was shit, but I had so many like game advantages on him,
it's because of
man
the
game
COVID
advantages.
rescheduling too, though. It all fell
Yeah,
into like those weeks.
yeah. And I just overwhelmed him with numbers, right? Which cleared the way for you to win the cup. You're welcome, by the way. Uh,
We'll go back to it though, right? The top seed has only ever won once, and it was
yeah,
Nick, and
it
he did
was.
it by tie. You know, every regular season matchup matters because you need that tiebreaker. So it's gonna be an interesting week. I still think Nick comes out, but I think Dan is gonna be a tough opponent. I can see any of the final four winning it all. Well, I mean, obviously they all have a chance at it, but I can see their team being good enough to get them there. So there's
Yeah.
no disrespect when I pick Nick over Dan. It's really I just think his team is ultimately better than Dan's, but Dan does have an opportunity here to take down the Titan.
Oh, and yeah, just to add to that, I'm not too sure who has the tiebreaker because they finished 1-1 in the regular season against each other.
In playoffs, the last tiebreaker is standing.
Okay, so Nick will have the tiebreaker.
Nick will have the tiebreaker throughout, ultimately, if the season series is tied.
Okay.
That's the advantage to finishing first.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, as it should be.
Yeah. Now we'll talk about the other semifinal matchup. That's the one I'm looking forward to. It's a rematch of last year's finals. We got Le Champion, Team Ramrod, against Sauce Pass, who's looking for a little revenge after I ended his championship dreams last year. Who you got, Kyle?
I got to go with the Le Champion. Um, I see no reason not to pick you. I think Corey overperformed a little bit last week. I think you overperformed a little bit last week, but I, you just have a better team. You have like more superstars. Your entire lineup is healthy. There's really no reason why you should lose this week, especially like you know you're going in there with like a pretty stellar goaltending situation. Um, you just have a better team, and barring and like Aiden Hill is out, so that hurts Corey's goalie situation. Yeah, I
Wilson
just
suspended.
yeah, yeah, he's on the IR plus though, but yeah, it doesn't help him out when he can't put Hill on the IR plus. It's not like he's going to drop Hill. I don't think he is anyway.
He's not.
Uh,
I was talking to him today. He's like, I can't drop either of these guys. Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
so he has to deal with the minimized roster situation.
Yeah, I just the odds are in your favor, so I got to go with you.
I'm obviously taking Le Champion again. I always preach Le Champion. I would like to say my team is better than people gave me credit for. I played the first half of the season with like 4 or 5 bodies on the IR, and I was keeping up, And then I made improvements to those players. So I don't think my record really reflects how good my team was early on, because I was like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm gonna make the playoffs anyway. I don't need to move on these bodies. So this is
Yeah.
like one of the few times of the year my team has been actually healthy over the last 3 to 4 weeks. So now they're at optimal performance right now. And I think we're just going to take it to Corey. And again, that's not disrespectful to Corey. For all the reasons you said, I think my team fundamentally is better than Corey's. And it's not just, I mean, I have the bigger superstars. I believe the better goaltending. Um, I just think my team's better, and Corey has a really good team. It's gonna be a tough week. He could beat me. I'm not saying, oh, there's no way he's gonna fucking beat me. No, no, and I'm not saying that at all. And there's a good chance he could beat me. I think the advantage is in my hands.
Yeah, you have a huge advantage, I'd say, and your players would have to really not show up. But like some of your players are chasing fucking records right now, and they're motivated, right? You got Matthews, you got Ovechkin, you got McDavid who's trying to get to 150 points. Um, I think you have a more motivated core,
Hell,
and
he's
I
fighting
think
for that Vesna.
yeah, well, yeah, and then the goaltending situation with Hill being out, like advantage you. And I
It
mean,
is
like,
his, I think he's gonna have to use his ads to pick up some goaltending, and that works in my favor.
100% it does. And I mean, like last week, like your goaltenders did not do well, as far as I'm concerned.
They did not. They
Uh,
underperformed big
they
time.
underperformed, and you still managed to get some points. You know,
They
from
weren't
that
pretty, but I
this
got
week.
those wins, but they weren't pretty.
No, that's it, right? Like, you took some beatings to get those wins. Where this week you're probably not going to get the same result that you got last week. You're probably going to get better goaltending this week. It's going to be hard to do worse.
Winnipeg has a tough schedule, though. They play Edmonton and Vegas this week.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe you have another tough week, but you know what? You're going to get the man games.
I think so. I'm running 4 goalies right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get all 3 Winnipeg starts. I'll probably get 2 of Chicago's, um, maybe 2 out of Carolina's. I know Koch is up next in the rotation. But how
Yeah.
do you keep Anderson on the bench? 6 wins since he came back, like 960 save percentage. And that's not a knock against Koch. It's just he's been so hot, Anderson. How do you not maybe give him a little extra start here or there
Yeah.
going into
I
the
was thinking, I was
playoffs?
thinking about this. I was thinking about this today because obviously I got Koch in elite still. Um, and I'm like, how long until they start? Because they're going to be amping up for the playoffs too. And you don't want to be, splitting goalie starts in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they're gonna give the playoffs to an experienced person like Anderson,
I
right?
feel he's getting the playoff starts. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So like I feel like, well, you have to prepare him, and you have to start giving him consecutive games to warm him up.
a big 2-1 win on Toronto. That was a big win yesterday. That's a tough team to limit
To,
to 1 goal.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping for him this week. Just a strong performance. I feel he's been my secret weapon all year, just hiding on my IR.
Yeah.
He spent over 4 months just clogging up my IR.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like a huge reason why I ended up moving Kachekov is like, well, I gotta make sure I have a starting goalie for the playoffs. But then my goalie ends up being injured that I traded for, so it made no difference.
It was like, yeah, it made no difference. But I think Markstrom's going to be a better scenario next season, um, than what he's in
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty happy to have Markstrom. Like I would have liked to keep Kachekov, but yeah, I'm cool with having Markstrom.
There was a time where I made a trade, Markstrom for Sege, and everyone was like, "That was rape. Markstrom's trash." And now people want Markstrom.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be very interesting semifinals. Myself, I'm looking forward to a possible second year in a row where you have the top 2 seeds battling for the championship. I think that's healthy for the league, really, that the top teams are making it through. It just motivates those other teams. Like, I need to get at that level. Like, I can't just sneak in and expect to go on a run. I need to improve my team to the point where I can contend. And there's several teams this year that could contend. In fact, all four of these teams can. But I personally, if I'm going to win this year, I want to go through Dre to do it.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I look forward to watching this week as it plays out and see if there's any upsets in the offing or if it's going to be one versus two,
Yeah.
and we'll see who the best is.
So I want. That's what I want. But Corey's standing in my way, and he's not gonna make it easy. So I look forward to a good week against Corey.
And Nick has to overcome some adversity with Tampa Bay playing less games this week.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's not a game breaker for him, but it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah, no, definitely leaves him a little bit vulnerable.
There was one point in the season when I think it was Stamkos was available, and I'm like telling him, like, well, I'm surprised he didn't go after Stamkos. He's like, I thought about it to have like the trio, but he's like, he knew already at that point. This was like 6-7 weeks ago. He's like, but week 2 in the playoffs, Tampa only has 2 games. He's like, I can't have 4 guys with only 2 games.
Yeah, a good thing he had the foresight to avoid that trap.
That's part of it too, right? Like, I don't find enough GMs do is they scout out what the schedule looks like in the playoff weeks.
Mm-hmm. And plan accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. I do it all the time. I'm looking at, okay, what's the man game for teams look like? If I'm training for players at like the deadline, I don't want players who are going to be useless in the playoffs. I want guys who can play games and significant games, right? So
Yeah, for sure. You got to look at matchups too.
yeah,
Who's got an easy week? Is this going to be a high scoring game or are they going to get blown out?
it's hard to tell sometimes, but you can reasonably predict.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we have. We have like 5 minutes left in our time, so we got just enough time to kind of again thank everyone for participating this year. Oh no, there is something else. I want to remind everyone next week is our finals show. If you are interested in joining us, we will try our best to accommodate as many people as possible to be on the show, as we will also be doing our draft lottery during that show. So if you're interested in being part of it, part of the discussion, we're going to talk about, the ups and downs of the season for everyone that's in the chat that wants to talk about their team and how they performed, what they felt about their progress or their results. But we're going to get to the draft lottery. We're going to find out who's going to get the number 1 pick in next year's draft, which I will remind everyone, please keep your notifications on for the Yahoo app. It's easier for me to send one message through there than send 16 messages out individually to say, hey, this is when the draft is being planned. Does this work for you? So
Yeah.
I do my best to try and accommodate as many people as possible within reason, right? So, but we're going to start talking about, I'd probably say end of July, early August, start checking so we can organize our September draft. But next week we will know the draft order, with the exception of the final picks. But no one cares about those fucking picks. I will say, thanks for joining us again this week. Thanks for joining me, Kyle.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And good luck to everyone who is still making a run, except for you, Corey. This week, go fuck yourself.
See ya.